Right. Welcome, everyone. Going through the setup, make sure everything's all turned on. I hope. Should be live right now. Why does it look like it's not live? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. Hey, everybody. I realized my mic was turned. I am working on the remnants of the infantry. All of the rifles have been painted. All of them have had wash for both sets. All that is left currently is to apply the red to the rest of the shields. Notice a couple here have the red, the others don't. I basically have just 8 guys left to do. And then after that, there's a little bit of prep work prior to doing the bases. I've already started getting the bases done. They have the wash on them. That looks like I'm going to have to redo the black, though, on the edges. Oh, well. And we're nearing the end, which was great because then I have all of this getting set up for the Revelations Battlefield Kickstarter that we're prepping for. There's a... Yeah, so that'll be good. All right, so I'm going to continue on with the red. Get that moving forward the rest of the way. Actually, you know what? I probably just need to add a little bit more to this because they're so close and I don't really want to waste the paint. We're basically done. Where is... Oh, this brush will work fine. If you happen to be watching this during the replay, if you could leave a comment, I don't know, say something like replay, or I watch this, write it out however you want, just so that I know that there are people watching the replays, because I'm trying to assess if the streaming should continue. I wanted to try it in the middle of the day and see if it would work. Middle of the day for me. Obviously, that depends greatly on where everybody is in the world, but I wanted to give it a shot because I'm working in the middle of the day, so why not, right? It's a touch harder for me to stream consistently during the evening. But if there is not really any interest in watching the streams, then I can always just not stream. Not a crazy amount of time that's required for the infantry, but it feels kind of like it because you're doing so many little acts. You're not doing these big, mech projects or whatnot. But infantry are important too. Do enough work as needed, and then moving on to the next project, though. Could end up really getting lost in doing a lot of perfection on these guys, and then it's not really appreciated or seen by anybody. It's always kind of the trade-off of when you're painting is like, well, how much payoff am I getting for this extra effort? Is it substantial enough to make it worth continuing, or should I move on? Just do what I need to do to get it finished and do something else. It's definitely helpful having a smaller tip brush, though, for this kind of work. This would be very difficult with a big, wider tip brush. Down to the last. After this guy, there's only 3 more left. 3 more of the shields. Still need to go through and paint the base of each of the infantry, their disc that they're standing on, so it'll more likely blend into the base. We need to dry brush the base up. Oops. And then we still have conscripts to do. Always feels kind of awkward when you're doing something this small, especially on like these sticks, to finagle your hands around it. I suppose that is a first world problem, though. on with the red. Hey, Chrysala. Yes, I am. How are you today? Frustrating. Still some red on there. So, actually, I might need this brush. So then, if the red is all done, what I need to do, I guess I could paint the discs, or I can. It's probably a good idea to also dry brush these bases. Move this aside for the moment. It's off here. I accidentally painted, or I had paint on a napkin and it got stuck on here. It's better today than yesterday. So I shouldn't complain. Chair's wheels are all out of whack. So, consulting my previous work, Basilisk Brown, which I think is actually like a yellow, and then Burnt Orange, and then Desert Yellow, which is should be out. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. It's an army painter color. This is the point where I realize I need to put away all these other paints. Wait. Found it. All right. There's the 3 colors I need for the base. I did, going off the guys from last time, I did Burnt Orange as the orange disc. Basilisk Brown first. Yeah, that is my secret recipes. as secret as it is. So I have, that was for something else. 7th Queen's Fury, which is a lot of colors. Lasonia Brown, Faust Green, the 264th, which is what these guys are colored. It's not anything nuts. But you could see the secrets. And see how I cook things, I guess. Now, my dry brush is... Well, I guess I could use this one. It's all messed up, but it's okay. It's probably not long for this world. It can definitely do 6 bases, though. Yeah, I went back because the 264th, I changed the color recipe. And then I just used whiteout on it. And then fixed it to add, because I had changed from the like maroon and tan color to like the yellow or tan and the much sharper red. It is super helpful because I always think, oh, I'll remember what those colors are. And then I sit down. Now, like this one, I've done this one so many times. I remember Basilisk Brown, Desert Yellow, Burnt Orange. I just read it because I want to be sure. But like I remember that one. But some of the others, I won't do them for so long that like I don't remember. This particular brush, a week ago, but not like deep clean because it doesn't get the love and support it probably should have. I wanted to be through this project like so much faster, and I don't know why I keep lying to myself. Trying to stop it. It's a bad habit, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, when it's something like that. But then I have to like remember because we're using primer or whatever the base is, and then whatever other component. So it is coming super handy for me. I didn't used to. I used to just whatever. But I also didn't used to use as many colors as I use now either. No, I do clean them every time. These particular brushes, because I have some of these makeup ones, they ended up accidentally getting left in a cup that then dried out. So I don't do that though with the other brushes. That was these ones. But yeah, I mean, you'll like when I'm painting the other like detail brushes and stuff, like, go back and forth to fix those every time. Oh. No, I cleaned them. For sure. You can trust me. You can trust me. I cleaned them. The other downside, I don't really use expensive brushes. Not that I don't have reason to believe that you do. But as I understand it, the cheaper brushes don't last as well. This is different. This brush is dirty. I give you that. We need to go back to standard definition. No more high detail. Desert yellow. Is it because it's like extra tedious, or because you have? You don't probably hand cut those, right? I guess I could look. Where's one of your bottles at? So many paint bottles here. Should have them. None of them are standing out, but I have them here. Why does this look so... Maybe it's just because it's damp. No, it's pretty close. Oh, okay. Recut sheets. I'm gonna put that color. Oh, way over here. So I don't recall, Kursala, and forgive me if I somehow completely missed this. Are you 100% back to making paints? Because I thought you weren't sure yet. Last I heard, that was a couple months ago. You weren't sure yet, and you were still kind of like going through older inventory. But I don't know if you had fully committed to like, yes, I'm going to do paints or overlays or what, anything specifically. Okay. Are you going to be keeping the same catalog of colors? Whether or not you rename them or something, but as far as the colors themselves, or are you not sure yet? Well, I'm making it once. I'm going to have to come back later and do bottles in a few months. Oh, okay. Whoa, it's a little severe. Shoot. Merging the wash and stains into the overlay line. Yeah, I remember you saying before that metallics were difficult. Well, I think they were because they were expensive, right? Not my favorite part. Not worth the effort since other brands do. Oh, okay. It definitely is all part of it, of whether or not to do something just because you can versus the price point the competition can do for the amount of return. These guys are so close to being done. So excited. Not excited about is I'm now thinking about it. I need to paint more for my skirmish forces because I only did 2 units in this color scheme. I really should have like 4 at least. So it means I got to go through all of this again. But not yet. I will wait. I'll wait a little bit. And the upside is I only have to do 8, 16, 24. No, I already did 2 units. So if I want to do 2 more, it's only 16 models. Okay. Well, that works too. If they're just not... You just don't want to do it. I don't know how much I'm going to enjoy this once I get to those sticks, but it won't be that bad. I just got to get it done. Appreciate you being here, by the way, Crisala, for however long you are, because there hasn't been anybody else stop by yet that said anything. But don't feel like you have to stay. I'm just saying thank you. Real streamers play video games. The bus race sounds like a fun game, but I imagine it's not. Except the bus comes right to your house, though, right? So it's not as bad for you. Oh, that's a shame to walk all the way outside. I haven't asked. Is your ankle all better now? Have you made a full recovery since you had that case of old? I know what it is. I'm just going to paint over it. I'm going to give that debris the landlord special. No, it still hurts? That stinks. That's not fun. Ow. Hopefully it doesn't take too much longer to heal up. Well, hey, Remy. That works. I mean, everyone's... I knew that was always the risk of doing it in the daytime. Everyone's got stuff to do. So, just trying it out. Still not sure how I like it. I mean, I don't mind streaming. Trying to get used to being mindful of like, oh yeah, I'm going to be streaming soon. I don't know if at the end of the day the time really ends up mattering much. Individually, sure, but in terms of oh, you'd have 50 people watching if you did this hour. Well, it's good then that you know what to do to help it. I mean, if it's getting less sore, then it's progress. Yes, that is true. There would be 0 people if I kept not streaming, which is what I was doing, and I was doing great at getting 0 people. Like nobody got 0 people better than me. I made it. I was pro 0. It's always good to have at least one day off a week. But I get if you have to work extra. been trying to be better about taking a day off in the week because I haven't been. But I've been better about it. Not sure if it's serving me 100% the way I'd like it to, but... Well, into that guy's foot. Man... I don't think I'm really going to see it. At least I uncovered part of it. Maybe something you can do more... Yeah, I mean, I would love those sort of discussions, which, I mean, technically, yes, there should be more lore videos. There should. There will at least be those how-tos soon. I was telling Remy the other day, Kursala, I was going to resume the podcast. I had a couple of ideas. I don't want to just ramble on it. With, like, you know, keep repeating the same ideas over and over. I want it to feel like each episode kind of matters. There's going to be some overlap, but you wouldn't want a bunch of videos doing the same thing, or episodes. Probably one of those things like, who wants to hear what I have to say? Because I'm in my own head. I know all those things that are in my head. Well, if the people can audibly talk, yeah, it could be a problem. But text is fine. But I mean, that's one thing I was kind of hoping. Like I popped into Discord earlier, and there's been other times that I've gone in there and just been like, hey, I'm in here for a while. I don't expect the same people to be available by any stretch, so it's not calling any individual out. There's been a couple of times that I've been in there and I've sat for a while and then no one came by, and I think, and maybe in part because like Discord is great, but for people who are not extroverted, maybe they don't want to jump in. Not mentioning just time of day. So not today specific, just in general. And I don't know how to get past that. I was wondering if like the field manuals would kind of help in a way, because it would make it more like, oh, okay, now I know more, so now I can talk more. Oh. Well, I know you I know you say that, Remy, but I don't know. I'm in, like I said, I'm in my own head. Talk about your recent experience with losing modelers. Learning model, then finally giving up and doing it all yourself. And be like, yeah, reference, what was it, like episode 3 or 4 or something? It was like, you can't do it all, you have to hire people. Fast forward, hey, you can't hire anybody, no one's gonna be dependable, you gotta do it yourself. That's not true that no one's been dependable at all. Kursala's been a huge help, but just like how many problems that we've run into. And I did find it, I still find it funny that a bit more of like, well, I guess I'll wear the hat myself. Was not my intention. That could work. Could use it as a role. That's a good idea. I don't get notices for Discord for some reason. I get them from YouTube. You may, if you go into Discord and you, depending on what you're on, whether your phone or your PC or something, you can click on the server. I think it's press and hold if it's a phone. and you can see what the notification settings are. Because the one thing that's kind of irritating at first when joining a server on Discord is that you have to go through and mute whatever you don't want. And if it's the whole server, it's really easy. But for me, there'll be certain channels that like I don't care anything about, right? I join one of my local game stores. I don't care about the Warhammer chat or certain card games like One Piece and stuff. Like I'm not into those. So you have to go through and individually shut each one of those off depending on how the server is set up. And that is kind of annoying, but I don't know how many people know to do that. So they might just be like, I'll just mute the whole server and then you don't get notifications. Yeah, and I really want to be able to do the field manuals. And the only thing that really made me hold back primarily was for the money for artwork for it, because I didn't want to do them and them just be entirely text-based. And at this point, a lot of my earlier artwork has been, we'll just say retconned, because like if it had a Sierra in the picture, well, Sierras are different. So I lost all of those images outside of doing things that are like, oh, this is a library image or throwback or, whatever. And all that imagery, while I know people who I could get it from pretty affordably, it still adds up when there's a bunch of projects when you're not sure of what the return is going to be from readers. I've considered skipping the Kickstarter method and then just focusing on just doing like what I had done a couple years ago. Actually, the first year when we started for Skirmish, I just did a pre-order thing, and I used, because Kickstarter had failed, and I was like, well, let's just do pre-orders and we'll see where we get. But it'll make new people more nervous, because if they don't know that they can trust us, then they're like, well, I don't want to pre-order something that I don't know if it's going to get made, even if Rick's saying, well, I'll refund if it doesn't, or something. I don't know. Kickstarter has its own goober issues. I am far from a Kickstarter fanboy. Especially with all the special treatment that you see between smaller businesses versus the bigger businesses on there. Well, you're a big studio? Here's all these bonuses you get. Well, you're a small studio? Oh, we're going to treat you like crap. They don't really treat you like crap. They just don't treat you special. So you're, despite having successful campaigns, you're still seen as like a first timer because you didn't generate millions of dollars. I don't need them to reject my projects because of that. I can do that on my own. Thank you very much for breaking rules that they don't even state are rules anywhere. That is easily found. Those goobers. $12 guys left after this one. So close. My mother's texting me. Goodness. Well, and once these are done, I can actually give them a little bit of time to dry, but then I can actually base them. Huzzah! Tons of progress done today on these. Should have had them done yesterday, but yesterday got away from me for stuff I had to take care of. She was down in Florida. Nice. It's starting to get hot though down here. Summer is rapidly approaching. Yeah. Well, thankfully last night though was super productive and was super positive. So, despite the difficulties and the stress of the early part of the day, it ended on a very good note. So, I am very pleased. It's not always summer down here. We have a few months of decent. I was sad because my power bill has been going down, and now because we've been able to like have the windows open a lot more, or just not even having to turn on the AC. But that is over. I think we had a slight cold front come through to cool things off, and I think that'll probably be the last one. Well, yeah. I mean, it's not really not bearable. You just deal with it. It's certainly not pleasant. I don't think 50 is cold, just so you know. And snow's still not real to me. So say what you want. But I know that like Chrysala's version of cold would be more severe than mine. But Tropicalo dudes. Where? That Virginia's like that? Or that Florida's like that? Because Because Florida can, I mean, you exaggerate when you say it like that, like people down here. Oh, it's like I walked outside and I took a shower. I mean, kinda, but it's not really. It's not like you're just drenched. That does happen, but you normally have to exert yourself. You can't just walk outside like that. There are times where it does suck. Like big time suck. Down to the last two. I guess that would be true. Northerners do complain about the heat way more. I assume that's what you meant by work differently. Done did get goofed. Done did get. Done did get bad English. Opening my camera. I want to see snow. I want to be able to finally debunk that myth. For sure. At some point I will. I don't know when. But I do want to. Okay. Start popping these dudes off. Wait. Remove the infantry from their current base to the correct one. Now, why isn't the hot glue removing as it is supposed to? This hot glue seems a lot more unpleasant to remove. I'm gonna have to do that off stream. I'm gonna do that later. What's up with this? Well, there we go. Because I was trying to cut it rather than just pull it from the top. Duh. One little guy. Alright, Kursala, thank you for stopping by again. Talk to you later. Ah. Ooh. You have to use like enough pressure to remove it, but not so much that I hurt myself. There we go. I wonder if I could use this tool so that the risk of stabbing myself is greatly reduced. And I should probably remove this paint before it gets all over me, as it is trying to. Oh no. All right, it's safe. It wasn't broken. Oh, that made me so nervous. Oh. This way. Yeah. Yeah. Got him. This works really good though, doing it with the stick method. And then what I just did was I put a little tiny drop of hot glue, and then I could space the infantry out enough. So, these guys are at 12 millimeters. So they're actually, and the way that we do it is from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet, not to eye level, which I find it to be a very weird way to measure, but I guess other game companies do it that way. So each standard person we operate off of, just for the sake of ease of measuring, we say each soldier is 12 millimeters, but its real world equivalent would be like 6 feet. It's just like an average, just to have everything be relatively easily calculable. Yeah, I thought top of head made sense because when I was doing all the research and stuff, like, oh yeah, a lot of companies do it to chop the eye level. Like, what? Who? Oh, I don't say that I'm my height based off of to my eyes. That doesn't make any sense. I would measure it to the top of my head. So why? So it never made sense to me. Whoa. Every time it makes that like snap sound, I imagine the mic can't pick it up. It sounds like the stick snapped. But it's popping off of the hot glue. Battletech has no official infantry, and I think they were putting off making them because of the disagreement about mech height will be answered. Well, they do. They have the elementals, and they have another power armor coming out, but power armor and just a foot soldier are different. Those are different. And they wouldn't be able to be 100% properly scaled anyway, because the way that their game is, like, the vehicles don't even friggin' fit on the bases. But it doesn't have to be true scale, and I can appreciate that Scroggins is trying to get it closer. How I can put your models next to each other and get... Yeah, and that's what I wanted. I wanted people to do that exact thing. Be able to say, like, oh, this is a guy. This is how tall a standard person is, at least in terms of, you know, measurement. Obviously, people will be all different heights. And then you get a really good idea. The vehicles are a little harder, where some of them are much better, and that had to do with the way that they were modeled, like when they were modeled. Like, technically, the Mars would be thicker, like taller. It doesn't seem to have quite enough space in it, but we're trying to get better and better and better with each new model to account for that, and to try to make them, you know, like we hold a infantry up to the mech, and we're like, okay, so this is roughly where they would sit in the machine. This is roughly how much space they take up inside based on the way that the torso is right now. And it was in part what made me come up with a solution for the reactors in them, and to be like, well, the mech reactors are just smaller. That's why they're able to power this machine. They figured out a power source that they could make that was small enough that they could put it inside of a mech, inside of a tank, a hover tank, and this took off a whole chunk of the balsa wood. Yeah, elementals are all over the place for a lot of it is. A lot of it is all over the place. Eventually, they'll probably get more and more standardized because they've been making a movement toward that. But I'm sure it'll bring with it, well, then why is this? And it's like, well, you're going to have to ignore that because this is how we're moving forward. Well, and when it comes like all the reactor questions I'll get sometimes, like, well, how does this work? How does that work? I'm not smart enough to know that. And when I do try to come up with creative solutions, people are like, well, that's not how it works. Like, well, then why are you asking me? You want me to come up with a legitimate way that this works when you know that there isn't one currently with current tech? Sometimes what I've done when I'm doing the infantry, I paint an extra one or two in case I break one along the way. And I did that for the conscripts. I think there is 2 extra there. With these guys, I only did the exact amount. So I'm glad that they have, for the most part, survived. Whoa. It's like, drop him on his head. Alright, some of these have to be trimmed slightly. Oh, 1/7 the total of a card in a fusion. More. Yeah, that's true. At least that's... I feel that makes sense. This one needs to be trimmed slightly. Yeah, what about this one? But I know that one of the things that I do not feel confident in is, well, how much... It's one thing to power a machine. It's another thing to power a machine and laser weapons, or other energy type based weapons. So what is the solution there? And I've kind of landed on, well, some of the machines, especially the ones that maybe use a lot more energy, maybe they use effectively a large scale battery pack to charge the weapons. Not really charge, to use as the energy source for the weapon. And I feel better about that because then it also explains, well, how they were able to make batteries small enough to fit into handheld weaponry. I had gone through and done this phase, but it needs to be obviously done twice. Or next time I need to have an infantry to do this with. That'd be better. But some of those things that I've come up with, like for the energy weapons and such, is because I don't feel confident as a engineer of any sort. So I just try to figure out a creative solution for it that it seems to me to be believable enough to hand wave to be like, okay, all right, that's an acceptable enough answer for me. A lot of the times it's all I'm trying to get for when it comes to some of the tech, because it feels so outside of my wheelhouse. Now the question is, do I want them to be like this, or do I want them to be like horizontal or vertical? I had originally intended them to be this way. But I've noticed when I'm playing Battlefield, I like to turn them this way because they take up less space. I think I'm going to glue them this way, though. Which I can take these off of these stands now because they have done that job very well. Oh, no. I need to paint the edges still. Oh, I can do that in a minute. After basing the infantry, actually. I have 6 teams of infantry. That's cool. Alright, super glue. There it is. I guess I should have the 6 ready. All right. There's one. Hooray! Very many of the running though. Was that literally the only? Oh, there's another one. ML. Yeah, that's fine. This one. All right. I always feel better when infantry are done, because I don't personally enjoy them a great amount. They're very necessary, but I'm never like, ooh, infantry, let's do infantry. Debris in that one. What is nice, though, is when you do them, you can kind of go through and do a little bit of variation. So like here, kind of made it so the front guys are all shooting forward. That's probably a better angle. You can see they're all shooting forward, and these guys are kind of different. A lot of the shooting forward ones. Which is one of my preferred poses for the infantry, because, you know, it's what they're doing with their, you know, using their shields effectively. One last run and go. Ooh. Build up and aim forward. Let's have someone shooting backwards this time. Guy running in the center. Oops, push that one down. Watching one of your podcasts recently, you talked about how you wanted each faction to have a play style. How did you approach that? So, I will admit that I'm not certain of how well I have done with it. In terms of did it pull off the way I meant for it? I feel like it'd be one of those things that's better if somebody else says that it worked out the way it was, properly. My approach was, as I think I said in the podcast, was first to approach it with the Core Republic and to say, okay, or define like which faction is going to be my standard, which one's going to be like in terms of like Smash Brothers is a good example. You have Mario, and Mario is just like pretty good at middle of the road, right? Obviously skill, you can use Mario effectively, but he's your vanilla, so to speak. So figure out who the vanilla is and then kind of design around that. It was kind of my thinking. So I decided on the Core Republic being the middle of the road, as I've stated before. And then I said, okay, so this is what it's like to be middle of the road. How do we start to specialize that? And so I would kind of tweak things until I kind of felt that, okay, here's the idea I have lore-wise for this faction, maybe gameplay-wise, but is that how they really come across? And I think I've landed on that with the factions as they are. And if not, as we add more units, like the Faust Union works really well for having, they have some really big units and then some pretty small units. But they need more diversity in the catalog, more units really in the roster to prove that. And I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to with like the Ubervelm. I put into the Kickstarter, as you saw for the stretch goals, like the Anya Mark II, which is kind of like the Sentry to the Sentry Mark II. Like it's the next generation. So they still have the old Anyas running around. Now here's the updated version. So it's like it is an Anya, but it's going to be different. It's going to use a lot of the upgrades we did with Zealot. So once there's more of a catalog, I think you can kind of refine things and make it feel more diverse design-wise. But it is difficult until you have more experience to like, okay, well, what makes these guys different? And I kind of approach that also with like the mercenaries and the pirates. The mercenaries get everybody, but they get that point tax, so that way they're not broken. Pirates, I'm like, okay, pirates have to be different than mercenaries. We can't just have mercenaries 2.0, right? So I decided on, well, what if by and large, pirates may have access to a wider catalog of units, and not to mention their own, but they have an issue with defense values and with focus points. So what they need is they need a leader unit to help generate that. So that makes their entire army feel different because they can't operate as well on their own as like the Republic can. Now that the Core Republic infantry are all finished, we need to move on to the Faust boys, which, let's see. I think what I'm still gonna have to paint the base green, because that was what I did on these ones. So I have my And if you have any other questions specific to that Remy, I'm more than happy to answer. So I think this works well with that. That is too different. So what we need to do then is go in here and paint these with this. Did I use this craft green? No, I used this. That craft paint. Which I don't normally use a lot of craft paint except for terrain stuff. But since I already used it for the base, I need to do that. Oh, and then I need to still paint it black. Go back and update it. Yeah. Four o'clock. The times are disappearing. And I get a handy dandy. Oh, it's trying to spill on me. Get rid of all this trash here. People watching the stream don't have to stare at the garbage from the infantry. Now, where is the brush I had? Yeah, I thought I put it over there. And I did. It was just under the napkin. I feel like this is not going to want to cooperate with me. Yeah, I need a different shade. I don't want to do this twice. We're going to do reflective green. Heck with this. Paint on me. Paint streamer that's upset about having paint on their finger? I think the reflective green will do a good enough job for blending. It's just so that the bases don't stand out as egregiously. I mean, this kind of does, but I use that green. Green. I use that orange for the dry brushing onto the base, so the color palette is still there. Mix this up because I definitely feel like I've been converted to believe that the Vallejo line is very good with their color pigmentation, which has been appreciative to me. I only have one bottle of Duncan Road's Too Thin Coats. This is the first color I've bought, was marine blue. I like this so far. I want to continue with it. Vallejo, I think, is my favorite. Most, so far, the colors that I bought for Game Color, I have enjoyed. I am not a big fan of Pro Acryl. Some of the colors that I have are great, others are not. Kinda is not as bad as Army Painter. Army Painter has some shades that I really enjoy, and then has some others that I am very upset about. So, which is okay, that happens. Just obviously I would prefer to have paints that do their job well the first time. But I would like to buy some more Too Thin Coats. Try those out. Oh, really? You've used that same reference with Mario? That's funny. Yeah, my brain works with comparisons. Like, that is a huge thing. Is for me to find and identify something if I'm learning a new thing, to find, like, I will automatically try to seek out, like, okay, well, what is this like? How do I understand this? How do I weigh this? And a lot of the times it's finding something like that, or maybe not a lot of the time, but I'm always comparing something else to be like, oh, this is like this. And I don't think everybody does that. But it's what's worked for me. It's an easy intro character, not too complex. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mario works, right? If you're playing Smash, he just works. There's better characters for your playstyle once you know what your playstyle is, but Mario works. And you could stay with Mario and still do well. At least, I mean, I know when to get into like the competitive stuff, like that's a different animal than the average Smash player. I would describe the Faust Union in terms of gameplay. I want them to have units that are very strong and then very weak. So like my approach with them is that they are extremes. The Republic has a lot of stuff that's like middle of the road. Like the whole army is middle of the road for the most part, but I mean their units are too. And I wanted Faust to be like, here's something that's really not great, but it's cheap, so it's worth taking. And then you've got this expensive thing that is good, but it's expensive, so now I can't take a whole bunch of them. And then you figure out other ways to make their stats slightly, variant, whether that's health pool or save values. The only thing I don't really focus on in terms of diversifying armies for me is I don't really worry about speed movement too much. Most units will be within pretty close to each other. There are some that are very fast, like the Serpent, but most kind of fall in a general 2-ish inches different from each other. And I figure that that's just something that, yes, there will eventually be an army, and maybe even the Faust Union will shape up as that as time goes on. That is slower, but you're not talking about like they're going 20 miles an hour while everybody else operates at 60. Like that it wouldn't work. But I do use defense and saves a lot as a way to kind of demonstrate like, oh, this unit is weaker to being hit or stronger, or its armor is so strong that it's a slower unit for evading, so it's got a low defense, but it's got a higher save. Ryu from Street Fighter is the all-around. Okay, yeah, that works too. You also get different diversity in terms of the different weapons you use, right? So Faust Union will mostly have missiles and ballistic, while the Republic will have missiles, ballistic, and then a decent amount of energy. Orca will be more ballistic, missile, few lasers. But Orca and the Faust are kind of on a similar playing field. Well, I mean, they got one of their designers defected, so now they're able to design some units, but they're going to be Faust-ish because that's what the guy knows how to do. Yes, the Republic. Yeah, and I wanted the Republic to have... I want all the armies to probably have something that's kind of like, well, this is their answer to this unit, which may or may not be the proper way of designing units, but I figure if I'm trying to approach it where these militaries have been exposed to one another for hundreds of years, right? It's hundreds of cycles, that they're as one develops one thing, the others might not be able to keep up right away, depending on how advanced it is or something, or how it changes the dynamics of warfare. But they're going to try to eventually figure out an answer to something. It may not be the best answer, but it is some sort of answer to a unit. Because they have to figure out some way to deal with it. Which then gives you the benefit in-game to give players choices of like, okay, so you're going to be fighting a mission that's, you're going up against this big heavy thing. Okay, well then I'm going to take big heavy thing killing weapons. Yes, good idea. And as more and more units get added to the game, it allows us to give more and more answers and come up with new problems. So you make a new mech for the Republic or something, and then eventually you build something for the Faust, and they're like, okay, this was their response. But there is a lull in the deployment of that, because in the real world we're still developing it. But the factions access to tech and resources explain a lot to me how they will make units. Yeah. The Republic, if they wanted, could basically build just about anything. But they have their pride as a nation, which is very patriotic. So they are very... national pride is a big deal to them, right? Because they all believe the message. We have to reunite all the world. Not every single citizen, but many of them do believe that. They believe that is better. So they don't do all the fancier investment in tech like the Ethereal do, where the Ethereal are like, yeah, but our machines are an extension of our culture and our commitment to our king, right? So that they view things very differently. So they put in a lot more bells and whistles for their machines, because I am representing the house that I'm from and my king, not just me as a soldier. The Faust are just really more or less just trying to, well, depending on if you're from the cross team a lot, you're just trying to keep yourself alive. You're just trying to, defend your planet. So you're not worried about how things look. You're worried about literally, can it send bullets downrange? And I don't care how I have to tape that thing together. I just need it to be able to sling some lead. And then, all the other factions are in between. Sometimes the difficult part of the game design, not really difficult, but like something that's you have to like consistently try to remember and adapt and fluctuate around and everything, is that there's only so many different types of weapons, but you have to design them in a stats wise way where they feel a little bit different, but not broke, but different. And it's hard not to make them end up being very much the same, because there's only how many times can I design stats for a tank cannon, right? So what's good there, as I've mentioned other times, is keywords. Keywords give you a lot of room that when your stats can't be too diverse, well, the keywords can be very creative, and they definitely affect gameplay. Keywords are definitely how I lean And sometimes it's hard to come up with new ones because your brain's doing all kinds of other things and you're not really thinking about like, well, how do I make this thing? What new mechanic can I introduce? But you can also combine keywords differently. So like, this other faction has the same keyword as someone else, but they do, then they have another keyword, so it doesn't quite operate the same. There's lots of ways to make them work. And it is a really cool feeling when you've designed them and then you test them and then you end up releasing them. You're like, okay, these feel good. It's nice when the players confirm it. But it's all part of the song and dance. You don't always know if you've made a good call until it's late and in things, and you had to already have it out, and you just hope that you did it right. But if you've designed your game in a way that you can fluctuate and pivot, then even if you did design something that's like, I really wish I would have done this different, well, then you can correct it and pivot on it. Whoa. And hopefully just make it better all around. You hear the lawnmower in the background, Remy? It's mostly how I'm basing my approach. In the middle guy is the defensive and the aggressive. Yeah, that's a really good way to start it off. Is like, who are these three? And then from there, you're like, okay, here's this keyword heavy army. Here's this faster army. Here's this better defensive army. Or they have some sort of healing mechanic, or they're like, depending on how the game works, these guys are better at scoring points than the other guys or something. But then they're weaker. So they're good at the trade-off here is they can score VP, but then they're dead if they're not careful. So it is a fun challenge in ways to come up with solutions for those things. And the only thing, and I'm sure you've run into this, Remy, is you've been working on your own game. Sometimes the worst part of it is that it's kind of lonely. Because you don't, at least I don't really have anyone, I don't have anyone to share the stats with, right? I do that whole thing myself. And one day there'll be somebody else to bounce off of. But primarily, like right now, it's all me. I come up with the whole thing. You hear random brushing sounds. Interesting. So I don't think you should be able to hear any brushing sounds. Yeah, it really is. Really lonely at times. And not like boo-hoo, look at me, I'm lonely, but like that whole creative process. I mean, it's in some ways, it's a lot like writing a book, writing a novel, where like, you have this really cool idea that you're like totally in love with and you want to move forward with it and you're excited about it. And then you spend a couple hours writing new scenes. You're like, oh, this really worked out really well. But who do I share that with? Because if I hand it to you, you have to read it. And then there's the danger that you won't like it. So then there's the critique. So you're not really ready to put it out there, but you're still excited that you did this. And maybe, it still needs to be fleshed out more or whatever, especially when you have scenes that you haven't written, but you can see it in your head and you're like, oh, this would be such a cool moment, such a cool emotion for people to experience when reading. And you can't just hand that to someone right out of your head because it's not, you haven't spent the time crafting it. So you just kind of have this surreal, not totally euphoric, but very excited. At least, you know, I can feel the emotion of the scene sometimes of what I want it to be like. And I can't share that with anybody. There's no way to transfer that sensation without spending dozens of hours building it and hoping that the person who reads it appreciates it. Yeah, people do look at you weirdly. You spend hours and hours just staring at paper on a screen. Yeah, right. Exactly. And that's good that at least the playtesting is fun. I took, I've been working on this family game that is basically ready. Now I just need to do like the design part of it really. And I took it to a family event recently and tried to get some of my other family to play. Only 2 new family members were willing to play it. And it's like, people don't know yet that like, and I don't go out of my way maybe sometimes to be like, yeah, I've made my own game. Yeah, that's what my business is, yada, yada. Because reasons, but enough of my family know that's what I do. But no one, my aunt who's in her 50s, I believe, yeah, she's got to be in her 50s now. She asked me, she's like, it's not gonna be like a game with like a bunch of like little dudes on the table. I was like, no, it's a card game. But still having to push past that like half judgment of, I don't think I'm gonna like this. You don't even know what it is yet. Like, do you really think I would have, as silly as it is, in my mind, it would be like, well, you really think I brought a whole bunch of miniatures and terrain and dice and everything else that would be necessary on a family vacation when like I have kids and stuff I have to transport here? Like, where would I put all it? But they don't get it, how much stuff it really takes. Like, but I wouldn't be asking her either to play. I would be asking her if she's, you know, for something I thought she might be interested in. Contemplated going to a game store and paying money for playtesters. If you do that, I would be interested to know and how your experience goes. I have never done an open wide, hey guys, I have my own game to play test. I'm looking for testers. I've never done that. And I also have never paid anyone for play testing. So I would legitimately be interested to know in how that experience goes. I wouldn't base all of it off of one experience that you have, but you know, it'd be cool to know if that actually works and if that might be worth considering down the road. I've considered it, but I've never moved forward. I never felt good enough about it to move forward with it. Not because I was against it, just I wasn't certain how much benefit I could get out of it. But if someone else does and feels strongly about it, I might completely reconsider that stance. It's not a hill I would die on, that I would be opposing it. It is hard to test with kids around. They get excited but end up fighting about who to, yeah. Or if you're just, even like if you have another adult, but the little ones are still like trying to get your attention and like come up and like start asking a bazillion questions, and you're like, well, yeah, but we're trying to move this game along. That's just parenting. Oh, that's always cool to find out you have another game store. We have a lot more card shops than what I realized. I had gotten out of card games, but now that I've been playing Lorcana as like my escapism game, I've been finding out how many other card shops there actually are in the area or within a relative driving distance. I feel like it had really died out for a long time, but maybe not. We have other eyes to see what I miss or cannot. Yeah, no, I 100% get that. What's even more frustrating though is then like later when people are like, "Well, yeah, I could have said something, but I didn't know if you'd want to hear it." Or I would say as a thing, and this won't even totally matter even if you try it, but at least it'll make your sanity a little better. When you start going out there and start asking for feedback, or when you start asking for whatever, right? A review or just, hey, give me a battle report or something, right? Or just tell me your thoughts. Try, like, it's not a bad idea to sometimes just say, like, what do you think of this? Just to get like a general gauge. If you pay attention to some of the stuff that I've been saying for the last 2 years or so, I try to ask specific questions rather than generic questions, so that in hopes that I will hopefully get information that actually helps me. Because if I just say, like, what do you guys think? And just show this, sometimes all I'm trying to do is get interaction for the algorithm on social media. That's fine. But if I try to ask about the color scheme or something, I try to figure out a specific question, like, what do you guys think about this shade of red? Or do you think tan and red is a good combination? Something that's more specific, because otherwise what ends up happening is you say, like, I don't know, you ask a question, hey, what do you think about this mech? And they'll just be like, well, I wish it wasn't blue. Well, the fact that it has a blue paint job isn't what I'm asking. Like, I'm asking, like, what do you think about this design? So you have to ask a specific question that isn't like a paragraph long. And even then, there will be people who will just like it or will not give you the information. They'll shift it to something about, oh, well, it reminds me about my favorite Mac. Well, that doesn't give me any real good feedback. So I've tried to ask better questions in hopes that I will get better answers. Yeah, and knowing what was fun and what was not is definitely good. Sometimes when it comes to getting bad or feedback on the bad, not bad feedback on things that are not enjoyable is difficult, because a lot of people, especially if they're in person with you, do not want to give you negative feedback, especially if they don't know you, if they're not like really close, like a brother or like a really close friend, because they don't want to say, yeah, this element sucks or whatever. But like if they were on Facebook and they were just talking between them and some other player, they definitely would blast it. Possibly. Not everybody, but a lot of them. The only other caveat is, unfortunately, if you end up with a bunch of people or some people who become way more comfortable with you, then sometimes what ends up happening is they always give bad feedback, or they start complaining type of feedback. Like, I really wish that the save value was X, or I really wish that, these had a bigger health pool. And sometimes that is a legitimate concern, but I've felt that sometimes what has happened is my local group, which doesn't meet as much as I would like by any stretch, have gotten comfortable with giving critique that sometimes comes off a little bit more hurtful than they probably are intending. When if you were playing any other game, if you were playing, like if you were sitting down playing 40K, you have no power of influencing 40K. So you might have a gripe, but you'll probably just ignore it and be like, that's just the game. But if they have you as the person right there and they can make those gripes, sometimes they do. And it's not totally a legitimate, not that their feeling isn't legitimate, but that their critique is a bit misplaced, or isn't taking in the scope of things. So it is good, though, getting a report at the end of a session being like, okay, well, what did you think was the best? What did you think was the worst? What do you think needs improvement? Going from there with a bunch of other questions too. Yeah, and asking why they feel the way they do is always good to try to get them to explain more. A lot of people won't, and that is very frustrating when you're trying to get feedback, because I think you have a very similar thought process that I do of like, I want this to be better. I want this to be good. So if you don't like it, I need information so I can try to make it better. And a lot of people maybe aren't as good at articulating their thoughts, or they're very blah about it. Like they're just like, I enjoyed it, and like that's it, and they're content with that. When you were like, I need 5 detailed things you liked so that I feel good about this, so that I know that it worked. And a lot of people just don't always have that. You might not understand why a unit faction operates the way it does. An all melee faction isn't going to have range or much. Exactly. And they're not always taking into account all of these other big decisions that you made in order to bring and orchestrate this army to this exact playtesting or just game moment. And they don't like it. And that's just the way it is sometimes. But yes, nobody but you will know how much work and effort you put into it, and none of them will appreciate it fully. There will be people who are very appreciative, but they just don't have the ability, because I couldn't for anybody else's game, because I'm not the one there in the trench doing it. So I can appreciate it from afar, especially having done this. I can definitely respect it. Totally different. But I won't know, yeah, I rewrote this 18 times in order to be able to get this the way it is, you know. So if they want something that goes against the entire idea of the faction, maybe. Yeah. And sometimes people also, at least the exposure I've had with certain groups, is sometimes people just want to complain. And it's good to keep that in mind, that sometimes you're dealing with someone who's just not a very positive person. So then you take their feedback with a little bit of a grain of salt, because is this legitimate concern, or is this they just want something to gripe about? Like they're not a very positive outlook person. Yeah. It is very labor intensive. I mean, it's the same with like placing supports or a lot of it. I am sickened by how long it took to paint these guys. Not these guys are actually pretty quick, but I had problems with my airbrush. I had like all this stuff, but at the end of the day, you know, nobody else is going to care because they didn't have to do it. Oh, that came right off. Oh, there's a glue still there. Pop all these guys off. I still need to flock these, so I don't want to rush that. So I'll save that for later. But I should have been already popping these guys off while I was talking. Got all fired up. Yes, that is true. They hand you a bunch of feedback, and you're trying to actually pull from that something useful. Don't get demoralized, though, when you start doing it. Be careful of that, because it's really easy to get frustrated. At least it is for me. Maybe it isn't for other developers. Oh, no, don't know. Man, I was here earlier before like you and Kursala showed up. It was like good 20. I felt like it was 20. It may have been longer. And I was sitting here like, man, woo, that guy went far. Nobody's on the stream. It's literally just me. Should I be doing this? Is this stupid? Going through all that spiral in my head of of everything. So no, I appreciate you being here genuinely, and I appreciate you actually interacting, because I know, you know, someone else who has kids and works and everything. So like you have lots of your own real life stuff to deal with. So and that's also like the reason for these streams is yeah, at the end of the day, it's kind of brand awareness, but I mean, it's to interact with the community. So if nobody's here, I could sit in the room by myself. I wouldn't have to listen to royalty-free music. Yeah, I'm in my head a lot. I've been realizing how much lately I've been really saying that, because I really have been really in my own head a lot. And it has not been mostly positive. It's okay. Been happy as much as there's parts of me that don't always enjoy the painting. I enjoy seeing things painted. I'm not necessarily a fan of the process. But you got to do it to get to the part you do want. Yeah. I really do enjoy interacting with the community, and it's been kind of sad that things have been a lot quieter, because things really kicked up with the Kickstarter and then slowed down really hard, and I didn't understand why. But part of that's also been don't enjoy the nasties though, the means. Yeah, that's true. But had to kind of get myself back to where I need to be, rather than coasting. But I think a lot of that, though, with in terms of like the nasties and stuff, comes down to a lot to who is in charge of the group, because like I won't tolerate that in my community. Everyone's like, there should be a little bit of friendly, you know, joking around and some ribbing and stuff, but like if it gets out of hand, like it needs to get reeled in real fast, because I don't enjoy being around that personally. So I definitely think that my community probably doesn't really enjoy that so much. And even if parts of my community do, I don't enjoy it. So we're not going to do it. We're going to do something different, you know, kind of thing. Let me touch up the black paint on the edge of those bases so I can see that those are actually like done. Well, for the small part that I get to play and maybe making things, you know, giving you a little bit of an out, I'm happy to do that. That's when I wanted to do Revelations years ago. That was one of the things I had wanted to accomplish, was something for people to have as a outlet, right? Because we all need that. Which is why I try to make it a pretty chill place, because there's enough not chill stuff going on out there all the time. Even just in our own personal lives. Like, we all have stuff. Let's use this brush. Refresh a little bit of this black paint I got a wash on. That doesn't look like nothing. Yeah, I don't really know how much it's showing up in the camera. Oh, where's the spot? Ah, there. You can see as it glimmers. That right there, you can see it. You can see there's like this and this here. All this is from the wash, staining it just enough to be visible in the right light. Which, like, if I was just doing this for my own personal collection, I would still do it. But I could see how a lot of people wouldn't. But since I know that these are going to be getting photographed, I have to be concerned about how the lights will hit them. And then if it's all glimmery because of the wash, it'll be like, oh, I'll be really upset. And I don't want to be whipping out black paint to fix them before I take a picture. Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like two particular communities that I kind of observe definitely seem to go out of their way to have controversies. Like, pretty regularly. One of them could pretty easily avoid it if they would just stop gaslighting their community. It's a really good start. How can you treat your players like people? They're just vending machines. They're ATMs. What's interesting is that this might be something worth making an episode on for the podcast, is that I have noticed a trend. It's not too many people, but I have noticed a trend that when I make certain statements that I feel are welcoming and neutral, by and large, have actually had people leave the community. Silently, but they've left. And even though I'm trying to relatively stay apolitical, right? Like, I have my own opinions, but I'm trying to keep the business free from it. Even though I am, not everyone else is. And if I say anything that they think in this case, if it seems like it's conservative leaning, then that's not cool. Despite saying, like, I want conservative-minded people, not the crazies, but the conservative-minded people, to feel like they have a place they can go. And I think that that's okay. There's a lot of communities that are pushing them out for no good reason, just to antagonize them. Just because they vote a certain way or they see things a certain way. When I think it would just be better if we just worried about rolling dice rather than, like, politics is important and it has a place, but it doesn't have to be at the gaming table. There's enough made up politics of the factions that we can get into that we don't even need to do real world. It's just, yeah. Any of the public presentation, which is everything I do, basically, does require more work, which is why I spent so much time. I'm pointing there. You don't know what's back there. My terrain templates I did for Battlefield. Those took so much work. Way more than I thought they were going to. But they look really good. And I think they're going to do really good in the videos. Yeah, some people just want it to be political, or they're like, well, you don't aside, you're not agreeing with my political stance, or I want businesses to be political, when I'm like, I'd much rather if something super, super important happens, I think it can be okay if a business truly makes a statement. But I don't think a company needs to make a statement on every single political thing that happens, or every country that goes to war, or every incident that occurs in the news. It's too hard to keep up with all those things on a personal level. And as a business, without having all of the information, and then something comes out to say, it was that person that everyone was siding with really wasn't telling the truth, or they weren't really who we thought they were. So everyone rushed to be like, oh, look, I care about this thing, without waiting and being patient until we have the truth. But that requires, patience and being an adult about it, rather than just passing judgment just because you see something without knowing all the information. Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to Battlefield. Battlefield better work. So much time put in. But I'm looking forward to it. I think people will enjoy it. I need to bang out some more stats and make myself sit down and be like, all right, stats time. Yesterday was really about the Ragnar and the Bjorn designs for Faust. And we have a really solid plan that's in place. Hopefully next week we'll be able to show some pictures of in progress, but I am very excited that we have a solid, this is how we're going to move forward. This is how we're going to get to the end and get these fulfilled and out for everybody, because it needs to happen. And it bummed me out that Karldra was why we did the campaign, but we had a way to do pirates when Karldra kept running into obstacles. And so we were able to circumvent that. Like, okay, well, we can make progress here and do something. Let's get the pirates. We need that out. And Karldra has just been a persistent delay after delay after delay. So we figured out a workaround that we can control and we can move forward with. So I'm really excited about that, because that'll be awesome. Yeah, Faust, I so much want more. Yes, jumping to conclusions is a lot like hopscotch. You just hop over information or hop over facts. Well, and it always baffles me and sort of upsets me that if you don't agree with my group, I'm super upset with you. When, like, I can understand why maybe some people would have a different view of certain things. Sometimes I may disagree and say, well, it's not really the best option, or, you may question certain other things. But by and large, there are certain hot button topics that I would consider to be far more important than others based on where I am. But others, I don't feel need to be as divisive as what they're being made to be. When if we step back and applied a little bit of logic to it and had a cool mind about it rather than a heated mind, we would look at it very differently to be able to arrive at a different conclusion. But there's been a lot of tribalism lately where, like, well, you're red, or you're blue, you're pro, or you're against. And it's like, well, I have questions. Well, you're not allowed to be in between. You have to be in this very binary thinking. One or two, and I don't enjoy that. Yeah, it's sad that Karldra hit a snag, but it'll be fine, because what I have discovered, and I don't really have a way to prove this, but I have found that even when I run into a bunch of problems, when the design is finished, I'm pretty proud of how it got done. And that if I would have done it sooner, it may not have been the thing that I wanted. So, and I mean, kind of case in point, the original Sierra versus the updated one. I really, really love the updated one. But I had to experience the first one to appreciate the second one. I will always have a special place in my heart for the first one, because that was always like bringing the first mech, into the real world. But the second one has improved so much that like it's really, really been a cool experience with that. But it is 4:52. The only thing that was left was getting the flock on these and then gluing the guys in. So I don't want to rush that. So I'm going to go ahead and call it here for today. Thank you for joining me, Remy, and everyone else who is. I see a couple people watching that aren't talking. But thank you guys. And then we'll be resuming streaming next Tuesday. All right. Have a good weekend.